Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Making sure I'm live. It's good to see so many familiar names in chat. A lot happened today because day three was today, and what a day it was. Today marked. Um, so you know what? Let's just get to it. Day three of the Donna Adelson trial. And to remind all of you that some of you are joining, and this is the first trial you've watched, but this is actually the fourth trial connected to the conspiracy and murder of Donna Adelson's former son-in-law, Dan Markel. The case has already seen several convictions. Driver Luis Rivera pleaded guilty back in 2016, while shooter Sigfredo Garcia, middleman Katherine Magbanua, and Donna's son, Charlie Adelson, have each faced trial and are now serving time in prison. And now it is Donna's turn, the matriarch of the Adelson family. And prosecutors argue that she and Charlie helped mastermind and bankroll the entire murder plot, all to give her daughter, Wendi, who testified yesterday, the freedom to move with her two sons to South Florida. So the mode of a custody battle, the ability to move with her grandsons. And a family court judge had denied Wendi's request to relocate to South Florida. And in the state's telling, Dan was the final obstacle to the life Donna envisioned for her daughter once her daughter Wendi divorced Dan Markel. And with that backdrop, let's get into what unfolded on day three. First on the stand was Jeffrey LaCasse, Wendi Adelson's ex-boyfriend, who had been dating her up until about a week before Dan Markel's murder. And Jeff testified. I mean, this is fascinating, right? The ex-boyfriend coming to testify. And Jeff testified that he has worked as a professor at Florida State University for the past 12 years. He began seeing Wendi in late September 2013, and what started as a casual relationship eventually became serious and exclusive. Their relationship ended around July 14th, 2014. So can you imagine that too? Your ex testifying at a trial of yours. Your mother's, I guess you said your ex testifying at your mother's murder trial 10 years after you broke up. But during their time together, Jeff and Wendi's time together, Jeff said that Wendi often confided in him about the intimate details of her divorce from Dan and the ongoing litigation, which he described as an almost constant topic of conversation. He understood that it was a bitter divorce and that Wendi was deeply upset after her relocation motion was denied. And Jeff explained that he only met Dan briefly a few times, usually at child exchanges or events, and never spoke with him one-on-one. Through Wendi and her family, however, he adopted the Adelson's narrative that Dan was controlling and difficult. That's what happens when a family sets a narrative or a group of people sets a narrative. And since he didn't know Dan personally, Jeff said he had no reason to question what they were saying. He also testified that Wendi frequently expressed how much she wanted to move to South Florida to be closer to her family and how much she despised living in Tallahassee. In fact, Jeff recalled that on their second date, she broke down crying about the relocation denial, describing it as something that remained raw and, quote, very visceral for her. Prosecutor Georgia Kappelman asked Jeff if he was aware of Dan Markel's motion to limit Donna's contact with the children due to allegations of parental alienation. And Jeff said he was, explaining that Wendi and Donna discussed it often and that Wendi even showed him various court filings from the hearings. According to Jeff, every new motion or court development created turmoil in their relationship. Whenever something came up, Wendi and her family would unravel. Plans were canceled. Wendi's mood soured, and the stress of the litigation seemed to consume her. Jeff described the Adelsons as a family with no boundaries. Yeah, you think? And nothing, noting how deeply Donna involved herself in Wendi's personal life and divorce. He met Donna and Harvey several times, his what he maybe once thought were going to be his in-laws as he dated Wendi. He met them several times and once stayed in Charlie, her brother's home, when he and Wendi visited South Florida. And Jeff also testified that Donna, the matriarch, often traveled to Tallahassee for extended stays, sometimes lasting weeks, to help Wendi with the children and the divorce. Jeff described his interactions with Donna as limited, mostly just getting acquainted, noting that she rarely spoke directly to him. An interesting thing to note. He recalled one notable outing in March 2014 when he and Wendi went on a double date with Charlie and Katherine Magbanua at a restaurant. And during dinner, Katherine brought up her ex, saying that the father of her children is frequently in trouble with the police and had a violent criminal record. And after the group went back to Charlie's house, which Jeff described as very nice, complete with a pool and a hot tub. And once in the hot tub, Jeff said the conversation turned to Dan. And to say that Charlie disliked Dan, he testified, would be an understatement. Charlie seemed fired up with what Jeff interpreted as at the time as an overly protective, brotherly anger. Jeff recalled Charlie also saying that he, quote, knew people on both sides of the tracks and spent time with criminals, a remark Jeff said came across as almost bragging. Jeff also testified about a conversation he had with Wendi regarding her efforts to get her oldest son tested for the gifted program. He recalled it because during that discussion, Wendi asked him at what age children begin forming autobiographical memories. And Jeff said that while he was not an expert, the subject comes up in textbooks he teaches from. And he gave her a general explanation that children experience amnesia around age 2, beginning to develop memory around ages 3 to 4, and by ages 5 or 6 can typically remember events. At that point, the defense objected, arguing that Jeff was testifying in an expert capacity without foundation. And I kind of agree with that objection. The jury was then instructed to disregard his explanation. Prosecutor Georgia Kappelman then narrowed her questioning, asking what Wendi had specifically asked Jeff. He reiterated that she wanted to know at what age children remember events that happened to them. He answered 5 or 6, but the defense again objected. Judge Everett ruled that the jury could consider Jeff's answer only for the purpose of showing what he told Wendi and how that information might have influenced Wendi and Donna's state of mind, not as scientific fact. The defense continued to object. And at one point, Judge Everett even ordered them to sit down before excusing the jury so the issue could be argued further. The defense claimed a discovery violation, saying they had never been given prior notice of this testimony and had not had the chance to depose Jeff on the subject. The state searched through its files to find prior references to the conversation, but ultimately they could not. So Judge Everett agreed that the omission constituted a discovery violation, noting there has been a multitude of discovery, but as to Donna being able to depose, that didn't take place, end quote. However, he also ruled that the issue was minor and had not substantially impaired the defense's ability to prepare. His solution was to strike the testimony. The jury would not be allowed to consider any evidence about children's memory development. The state apologized for the oversight, emphasized that it was unintentional, and moved on from the line of questioning. After the jury returned, Prosecutor Kappelman shifted to a meeting Jeff and Wendi had at a coffee shop on June 4th, 2014. Jeff explained that the two originally had plans to travel together around the time of Dan Markel's murder. On the evening of June 4th, he was supposed to go to Wendi's house to spend time with her and the children. Instead, Wendi asked him to meet her at a coffee shop to talk. Take a listen.
That's right. And on June 4th, I had planned to see Wendi and the kids at her house that night. Middle of the day, she called me to sort of an impromptu meeting at Red Eye over on Thomasville. And she abruptly canceled our trip for reasons that didn't make much sense.
When was the trip scheduled to happen?
The 11th to the 17th.
All right, so you would have returned home actually the day before the murder
Correct.
occurred. Okay. And did she express concern about not being home in time to pick up the children?
Yeah, the reason she canceled the trip was I'm worried we're going to get strict.
Staying unless there is an exception.
Goes to motive, Judge. I
Overruled.
don't care if they go on a trip or not. All right, sir. So the reason for not going on the trip?
The reason for not going on the trip was tied up on a couple of things. First of all the stuff going on with Danny was a constant refrain. But given the stuff going on with Danny, she was concerned that she might not be back in time, even though our flight was to land the day before. And it wasn't so odd to me. It wasn't winter. We're going through it. It's like LA to Atlanta to Tallahassee, leaving in the morning. I didn't see any real reason why that would be a problem.
She would have needed to pick up the kids on July 18th, right?
Yes. She knew that then. Their schedules were planned out for like months.
Okay, so you would have returned on the 17th, and she would have been picking up her children from preschool on the 18th.
Yeah, I think 5 p.m. on the 18th, which is why, I didn't object. I just said, okay, I didn't make a thing out of it, but it didn't make any sense.
Kappelman pressed Jeff about why Wendi seemed so uneasy in the weeks leading up to Dan's murder. Jeff recalled that around June 4th, Wendi was unusually worried about needing to be home in time to pick up her children after their planned trip. He testified that it struck him as odd, almost as if she anticipated that something bad was going to happen. That same evening, Jeff was supposed to visit Wendi and the kids. She called and asked him to come over earlier than planned, saying she wasn't feeling well. And when Jeff arrived, he could tell she wasn't sick. She was just extremely anxious, her nerves affecting her stomach. She wouldn't tell him what was bothering her. Kappelman then shifted to questions about Wendi's television. Jeff testified that he had looked at it after she asked him to figure out why it wasn't working, expecting a simple setting issue. He turned it on and saw the screen was partially shattered. In his opinion, the damage looked deliberate. It didn't resemble something that children could have done, but rather as if someone around 5'5" to 6 feet tall had stood and struck it. Jeff also recounted another incident from April 20th, the night before Wendi's birthday. They had planned a special evening together, but she never answered his calls or texts. And growing concerned, he eventually went to her house and knocked until she came to the door. Jeff testified that she appeared intoxicated, but not just from alcohol, but possibly from other substances as well. Her eyes looked leery and her behavior seemed off. Wendi asked him to stay the night, but Jeff, annoyed that she had blown off their date, declined and left. The state clarified that this testimony was offered to show that Wendi was displaying erratic behavior at times during their relationship. Kappelman next showed Jeff a set of text messages from June 28th, 2014, between Wendi and her brother, Robert, about her relationship with him. Jeff noted that in the exchange, Wendi told Robert not to mention him to their parents because they didn't know. And Jeff testified that that was simply not true. By that point, he had been dating Wendi for over 6 months, had met Donna and Harvey multiple times, and the children frequently talked about him with their grandparents. He said it struck him as bizarre that Wendi portrayed him as some kind of secret boyfriend. Kappelman then turned to June 29th, 2014. Jeff testified that he and Wendi were driving from Gainesville back to Tallahassee when he confronted her because he suspected she might be seeing other men. He told her it felt as though for months she had been just stringing him along. The conversation grew tense, and he described the rest of the drive as very awkward. When they parted ways, Wendi told him it wasn't over between them, but that they needed a little time apart. Over the following weeks, they continued to text, and Jeff had video calls with the kids. He believed things were likely on the mend. The next time Jeff saw Wendi in person was July 13th, the Sunday before Dan's murder. They went to dinner at a movie, then returned to their house where they discussed both their relationship and Wendi's ongoing frustration about not being able to relocate. Jeff testified that every time Wendi returned from visiting Miami, she was distraught about being stuck in Tallahassee. And even though her relocation motion had been denied in court, and even though she had testified under oath that she accepted it, Jeff said her unhappiness over the issue was constant. It worried him since his career was at Florida State, and he questioned how the relationship could work if she was miserable where he lived and worked. Right. Solid question. According to Jeff, Wendi reassured him, but also made a striking comment. She said, quote, the only way I could ever relocate is if something happened to Dan, end quote. The defense immediately objected on hearsay grounds, but the objection was overruled. Jeff was then permitted to continue with what Wendi said next. Take a listen.
I was getting a little tired of this whole drama around the relocation. And so I pushed back on Wendi a little bit and said, like, you're going to have to kind of make your peace with this. You're going to have to take some responsibility for this. You're linked to Dan Markel for life. Kind of challenged her a little bit. And she said, well, can I tell you something confidentially? And I said, sure. And she said, last summer.
Same rule and remains. The objection is overruled. May continue with your answer.
She
Can
said,
I tell you something in confidence?
yeah, can I tell you something? After I challenge her, can I tell you something in confidence? Sure. Well, last summer, my brother looked into all options possible to take care of the Denny Markel problem, including hiring a hitman, and it would cost about $15,000.
Okay, and when she referred to her brother, she's got two of those, right?
She said Charlie.
Okay. And when she said Charlie looked into hiring a hitman, are you familiar with Charlie's joke? I looked into hiring a hitman, but got you a TV as a divorce present because it was cheaper.
Yeah, Wendi had told me that joke a couple of times. This was not that joke.
Okay, so this was something different.
Yeah, the joke was said with levity. It's a dark joke, but this I found chilling. I found disturbing. It made my stomach flip. It kind of took me aback. She was dead serious when she said this. And she'd asked to tell me in confidence, which you don't do before you tell a joke.
Jeff testified that the day after their July 13th meeting, Wendi seemed unusually enthusiastic about seeing him. She asked him to go to yoga, which Jeff found odd. Just the day before, she had been unsure about their relationship and hadn't been feeling well. Jeff admitted he didn't even like yoga, so her request struck him as unusual. After the class, they stood awkwardly in the parking lot. Jeff said he could sense that the relationship was essentially over. He tried to discuss it with Wendi, but the conversation did not go well. Wendi told him she didn't want to spend time together for the rest of the week. Frustrated, Jeff said he just threw up his hands, turned, and walked away. About 10 feet away, Wendi called after him. Jeff said she then began asking a series of detailed questions about what he planned to do on Friday. Take a listen.
In the parking lot of Journey's Yoga over by Winn-Dixie.
Okay, so you have your two respective vehicles there and
Yes.
you're parting ways.
Yes.
Okay, what happens as you walk away?
Get about 10, 15 feet away from her and she calls after me. I turn around and she had a series of detailed questions about what I would be doing on Friday. I had a trip to Tennessee planned and she wanted to know if I was going on that trip. And she wanted to know what route I would be taking. And if I didn't go on the trip, why wouldn't I go on the trip? And I answered the questions as best I could, but I was confused why at that moment she wanted to know the details of what I was doing on Friday when she expressly didn't want to spend time with me on Friday.
Okay, and we now know that Dan Markel was murdered on Friday.
Yes.
Right? If you had taken the trip as planned, which is as you reported to Wendi that day, what would your route have been?
I would have left my house at about 11 a.m., which Wendi knew. I'd related my plan to her earlier in the relationship. Needed to get to Atlanta for a dinner and was worried about traffic and stuff like that. So I would have left at 11 and I would have driven down. I would have got to Capitol Circle in Thomasville, which is close enough to Danny's house that it kind of gave me the creeps. It was kind of weird. Yeah.
Okay, so physically, you're saying you might have been sort of consistent with how the killers fled town.
Yeah.
Jeff suggested that Wendy's questions earlier that day were unusually specific. He testified that she seemed to know he would be taking the same route near Dan's home at the same time as the killers, raising the possibility that she might have been trying to position him to take the blame for the murder. As noted, Wendi testified under immunity yesterday, but only about topics she addressed herself. The state never asked her about these conversations with Jeff, potentially preserving the option to use the information against her later. And later that day, Jeff received an email from Wendi. Knowing that Wendi generally avoids confrontation, which is kind of surprising for an attorney, Jeff had previously told her that if she wanted to end the relationship, she could simply text or email him. The email he received seemed to partially follow that guidance, but in Jeff's view, it was also an attempt to extend the relationship for another week before officially breaking up. Wendi wrote that she needed until the 21st, July 21st, to figure things out and requested no contact until then. Jeff said the email left him wondering what was supposed to happen on July 21st, but he respected her request and did not reply. Kappelman then displayed a photo of Wendy's sons in her living room, showing their artwork taped up on the walls. Jeff testified that while new pieces were constantly added, he never saw Wendi remove any artwork until July 13th. And on that day, he observed Wendi taking art down from the wall, which he found unusual. Jeff went on to explain that he and Wendi reestablished phone contact about 10 days after Dan's murder. During one call, Wendi told him about going to dinner with Charlie, which Charlie referred to as a, quote, celebration dinner. That's important because Jeff said this contradicted Wendy's testimony from the previous day, in which she claimed she had never heard Charlie call it a celebration. Well, now Jeff is saying she did. Wendi also told Jeff that Charlie had said something to her at dinner that made her spontaneously vomit, though she did not clarify what he had said. Kappelman asked Jeff if he was aware that he had been suggested as a potential suspect in Dan's murder, and with a heavy sigh, Jeff said yes. He explained, however, that at the exact time Dan was shot, he was already in Tennessee, having changed his plans and left for the trip a day early. Jeff provided law enforcement with proof, including footage from a store out of state during the time of the murders, confirming that it was impossible for him to have been involved. Jeff testified that at some point he became aware that the killers had actually come to Tallahassee once before in June, a month prior to the actual murder. He pieced together that his travel plans on that day could have made him look like a potential suspect if the hitman had carried out the murder then. He explained that he was scheduled to take a business trip to Gainesville and leave at 11 a.m., meaning that twice in 2014, the exact days he left town coincided with the days the hitmen came to try to kill Dan. The first attempt was unsuccessful because they didn't want to carry out the murder in front of Dan's sons, which is why they returned for the second attempt. Jeff also learned that the first time the killers came, they drove a gray Nissan. At the time, he also owned a gray Nissan, which meant the killers may have purposely rented a car that looked similar to his. I think that might be true. And after that, the state had no further questions. Well, on cross-examination, defense attorney Josh Zellman questioned Jeff about his testimony. Jeff said that Donna knew about the motion referred to as the grandmother motion. Wendi had testified the previous day that she never showed Donna the motion, but Jeff recalled differently. Zellman asked how Donna reacted, and Jeff said Wendi told him that her mother was upset. He clarified that besides Charlie, he only learned about the family's feelings through Wendi. Zellman asked if Jeff believed Wendi was a deeply deceitful person, and Jeff, like a great ex-boyfriend he is, answered yes, depending on the topic, but noted that much of what she said later came out in evidence. Zellman moved to strike that comment. Jeff clarified that he had no personal knowledge other than what Wendi had told him about how Donna felt regarding the grandmother motion, and he agreed. Excuse me, some allergies. Let me grab a drink. All right. Zellman also questioned Jeff about the damage to Wendy's TV that he observed in June of 2014. Jeff described it as a spiderweb shatter pattern radiating outward, which pixelated the picture. He testified that Wendi insisted they watch an entire movie on that TV, even though there was a perfectly good one in another room, which Jeff found odd and indicative of her unusual behavior at the time. When asked about the size of the main damage area, Jeff said it was roughly fist-sized and reiterated that it looked as if an adult had actually just hit the TV rather than a child throwing something that struck it. Zellman then revisited the July 13th conversation between Jeff and Wendi, during which she told him in confidence that Charlie had explored all avenues to, quote, solve the Dan problem, end quote, including hiring a hitman. Jeff agreed that's what she said. And after this line of questioning, Zellman had no further questions for Jeff. Wow. So up next on the stand was June. And June dated Charlie Adelson after Dan's murder. June was in a relationship with Charlie from October 2015 to June 2017. She testified that in the beginning, Charlie and his family were not under investigation for anything, so their relationship felt normal. She described it like a fairy tale. Like a fairy tale in quotes. June said she met Donna about 5 or 6 times and described her as the matriarchal leader of the family. She also said she eventually met Wendi and her children. June explained that during the early fairy tale phase of her relationship with Charlie, he appeared to have a normal level of stress and anxiety related to work and did not display anger toward anyone. Prosecutor Georgia Kappelman asked June what, if anything, she knew about Dan's murder during her relationship with Charlie. June said she had no knowledge beyond Charlie mentioning that his brother-in-law had been murdered by an unknown person. She testified that the family never discussed potential suspects or the circumstances of the murder until law enforcement began investigating them. Kappelman then asked June if she had participated in a police interview, and she said she had not, though she wasn't aware at the time that it was being recorded. Kappelman reminded her that during that interview, June stated the family never seemed curious about who killed Dan and did not appear upset about it. June agreed, saying, quote, "It's in the transcript. Then, yes, I said that." So Kappelman asked if June was aware of the bump when an undercover officer approached Donna. June said that after the bump, everything in her relationship with Charlie changed. At the time, however, Charlie had not told her about the incident, and she didn't know what was causing the changes until later. She noticed that Charlie wasn't sleeping, was up in the middle of the night, and appeared stressed, anxious, and depressed. Eventually, she learned, though, through a reporter who mistakenly thought she was Katherine Magbanua, that Charlie was under investigation. Kappelman asked June if she knew whether Katherine ever worked for the Adelson's dental practice, and she said no. June testified that after Luis Rivera, Sigfredo Garcia, and Katherine Magbanua were arrested, Charlie's behavior became increasingly erratic. The routine of their relationship was disrupted, and she sensed that something was wrong. Charlie became angry and short-tempered, particularly when Dan's case came up. June said he would get red in the face, start yelling, and take random long walks. And during that time, Charlie obtained at least 2 new cell phones and began communicating with June via WhatsApp. He also kept a packed bag of clothes near his bed and had men stationed around his home. June testified that there appeared to be a strain in Charlie's relationship with Wendi, and he told her that they were arguing about Dan's case, which led to periods of no communication between them. June also said that after the arrest, Donna's behavior changed significantly. She seemed upset much of the time, and June described her as a mess, mentally and physically drained. Charlie told June that Donna was taking painkillers to cope with the stress. At one point, Donna remarked to June that the life of her family was crumbling down and that Dan seemed to be haunting them from the grave. Kappelman asked June if Charlie ever made a comment to her about Katherine Magbanua undergoing a breast augmentation. Katherine's breast augmentation has now come into play in the courtroom. And June said, once again, and June said he made a joke saying, quote, "Everyone thinks I paid for the whole thing, but I only paid for one," end quote. On cross-examination, attorney Jackie Fulford focused on June's testimony regarding what she had told law enforcement during her police interview. June explained that she had originally been told the interview was not being recorded and that her statements would not be used. At the time, she and Charlie were going through a difficult breakup. Fulford referenced a past statement June had made saying that Charlie is a skilled liar who can make his story sound believable. She also noted that June had observed a large amount of cash that Charlie kept in his home. When June later saw in the news that Luis Rivera reported receiving stacks of stapled $100 bills, she testified in other trials that a light bulb went off in her head as she recalled seeing Charlie store his money in that same manner in his safe. Fulford then questioned June about her earlier comment that the Adelsons didn't seem curious about who killed Dan. She asked June to clarify, and June admitted that her statement was speculative. Fulford revisited June's remark about Donna, saying Dan was, quote, haunting the family from the grave. She reminded June that during Katherine Magbanua's trial, she had walked back that statement. The defense's goal was to impeach June by highlighting inconsistencies between her current testimony and her prior testimony in the 4 other trials. After that line of questioning, Fulford had no further questions. And up next was Ryan Fitzpatrick, a former close friend of Charlie Adelson from 2013 to 2019. Ryan knew Donna through Charlie and was also familiar with Wendi. Prosecutor Kappelman asked Ryan how Donna felt about Dan Markel, and he said that she did not like him. Ryan explained that throughout their friendship, Charlie had many girlfriends. One of these was Katherine, but she did not stand out to him because Charlie often dated women who looked and acted very similarly. Ryan also testified that he was aware of how Charlie stored his cash, $100 bills stapled in $1,000 stacks, and said he had even been paid by Charlie in that manner before, so he was familiar with the Charlie system. Ryan said that Dan's murder occurred before he and Charlie became especially close, and when Kappelman asked if Charlie ever discussed Dan or the murder, Ryan said no. It was actually surprising how little it was discussed. Ryan also testified that he was aware of the undercover operation known as the Bump, and that Charlie talked to him about it. Prior to the Bump, Charlie had never mentioned being harassed or extorted, but afterward, Ryan said Charlie became visibly agitated, nervous, paranoid, and in hindsight, appeared guilty. Ryan said that on one occasion, Charlie made a statement to the effect that, quote, you could get away with anything if you keep your mouth shut. And Ryan interpreted that as implying murder. He testified that after the arrests of Sigfredo Garcia, Luis Rivera, and Katherine Magbanua, Charlie's behavior became increasingly erratic, and he would talk almost constantly about the arrests. Ryan noted that prior to the Bump and the arrest, Charlie had not been anxious or nervous about anything in life, but that completely changed afterward. On cross-examination, attorney Jackie Fulford referenced Ryan's recent deposition in which he had said he barely knew Donna. Ryan clarified that while he did not know Donna as well as he knew Charlie, he had been around her many times and found her to always be very nice. Fulford also asked about the end of Ryan's friendship with Charlie, which Ryan described as, quote, a very ugly ending. Fulford then revisited the topic of how Charlie kept his money, and Ryan confirmed he was aware that Charlie stored it stapled. Finally, Fulford referenced Ryan's deposition in which he said that while he could not give specific examples of Donna speaking negatively about Dan or explicitly saying she didn't like him, it was implied. And up next on the stand was Clarissa Bolto, who worked at the Adelson's dental practice for over 40 years as Harvey Adelson's dental assistant. 40 years. She testified that Donna served as the office manager, handling front desk duties, payroll, and the books. Other staff included Erica Johnson, who was Charlie's assistant, and dental hygienist, Amy. And Charlie worked as the periodontist and traveled to other offices for that work, so he was only in the office about once a month. Clarissa considered Harvey the boss at the office. Prosecutor Sarah Dugan asked who had access to patients' medical records, and she said only Donna and Harvey did. Dugan then asked how she knew Katherine, and Clarissa said she only knew her as the patient. Katherine received dental work there, but did not work at the office, and she never saw Katherine perform any work-related tasks. Dugan asked how Clarissa was paid, and she said she received a check every 2 weeks. Occasionally, if Donna and Harvey were out of town, she would receive 2 checks at once as advance payment, but that happened only once or twice a year. When asked if she ever received 4 or 5 checks at the time, Clarissa said no. She was also said she was unaware of any employee working remotely from the office. And from 2013 to 2016, the office hired a cleaning service, which was a husband and wife team. It was not Katherine Magbanua. And Clarissa went on to testify that in 2016, 2 officers came to the office to ask questions about Katherine. Since she didn't know anything about the matter, she referred them to another employee, Erica Johnson. Next, Dugan asked her about the phone call she was asked to review to see if she recognized the voices. She confirmed that she did and identified the voices as Erica, Charlie's assistant, and Charlie. Dugan said she would wait to introduce that exhibit with another witness later in the trial and had no further questions. Well, on cross-examination, defense attorney Josh Zellman asked her about the office's old-style answering machine, which she confirmed they used. Zellman also asked if, in the 40 years that she had known Donna, she ever heard her speak badly about Dan Markel. And Clarissa, she said no. He then asked if she would consider Harvey and Donna a hardworking family, and she agreed yes. There was a brief redirect, and Dugan asked Clarissa about the answering machine Zellman had referred to. She explained that if someone called the office while it was closed, the call would be routed to voicemail. The messages could only be accessed once the office was open, but she wasn't sure who all had access to the answering machine. Clarissa also testified that during her time working for the Adelsons, she and Donna had a friendly relationship at work. They rarely spent time together outside the office, though, only on a few occasions. The first witness after lunch was Mary Hull, who works at the executive office of the governor and the chief inspector general's office. However, when she first became involved in the case, she worked at the Department of Financial Services in the Office of Fiscal Integrity as a financial investigator. And she went over her education, which was lengthy. We'll get to that in just a second. She went over her education, again, lengthy. Let's get to it. But here's the gist. She is someone who investigates financial crime. Back in 2016, when she became involved in the case, she looked at all of the bank records to analyze everything that happened there. She also analyzed other records, such as some iCloud records and email records. They went through a list of records Mary had reviewed, which included the following: the Adelson Institute's subpoena response in regards to Katherine's employment. Those records were dated September 2014 to May 2016. Dr. Rudner's records for the breast augmentation for Katherine Magbanua. Possible employment records for Katherine from Broward Dermatology during the dates of July 2015 to March 2016. Records for the Lexus acquired by Katherine. Vehicle and motorcycle records for Sigfredo and Louise. Bank accounts for the Adelson family, which included checking, savings, personal, professional, and 24 investment accounts. Credit cards for the Adelson family, including Capital One and Amex records for Charlie Adelson. Institute bank records from Regents Bank. A checking and savings account from Luis Rivera at Chase Bank from 2014 to 2015. Bank of America from Sigfredo's accounts from 2015-2016. Employment records from Coastal Masonry for Sigfredo from 2009 to 2014. Bank of America and Chase accounts for Katherine from 2013 to 2017. 44 checks from Adelson Institute deposited into Katherine's account. She also reviewed iCloud, which included emails and text messages to determine relationships and whether or not there were money and gift transfers between people and to determine how the Adelsons received or kept their cash. Dugan announced they would be showing graphs on a PowerPoint, and there would be portions of records not on screen that are in notebooks that show Mary's work. However, they would be in the jury room should the jury wish to look at them later. First up, Dugan introduced records tied to Luis Rivera. After Dan's murder, Rivera suddenly started making some big purchases. On July 28, 2014, he bought a 2003 Suzuki motorcycle. And just 3 days later, he picked up a 1996 Toyota Camry. Then came to look at his bank records. Between May 2014 and November 2015, Rivera's account showed weekly deposits, usually around $500 to $600, coming in from Coastal Masonry. Now, before the murder, his pattern was pretty clear. As soon as the money hit his account, he'd pull it all out. He had auto drafts set up, but they often bounced because his balance would be back to zero almost instantly. But right after the murder, that pattern completely flipped. Instead of draining the account, he left the money sitting there and suddenly nothing bounced. For about 4 straight months, his finances looked a whole lot healthier than before.
This is a visual depiction of his bank account showing the overdrafts. The red bars are the overdraft amounts that happens, the number on the specific days. And then you can see that big wide span in the middle where there's no red bars. And then it picks back up in the first part of November. I will add that even though it's not on this chart, that the car and the motorcycle was purchased in that section where there were no overdrafts.
So in the same section where there's no overdraft, he's also acquiring those vehicles, and he doesn't have any overdrafts from the time of the murder until about 4 months later.
That's correct.
And could that be indicative of him having another source of cash during that time?
Yes.
Then came the records for Sigfredo Garcia. On July 26, 2014, just days after Dan's murder, he bought a 1997 Honda Racer motorcycle. Less than a month later, on August 22nd, he picked up a 1984 Monte Carlo. And by October 17th, he added a 2000 Nissan Maxima to the list. And when it came to his finances, though, things looked very different from Rivera's. Investigators say there wasn't a bank account tied to Sigfredo Rivera during the time of the murder or shortly after. He eventually opened one, though, on June 5th, 2015. And for about a year, deposits came in from a job at Rapid Capital Funding. But before that, his work history was spotty at best. Between 2009 and 2014, Sigfredo only worked here and there a few months at a time, mostly with coastal masonry. And then next up was Katherine. Unlike Rivera and Garcia, she already had a car before the murder. But what stood out were the text messages shown in court. In November 2014, Katherine texted Charlie that she needed a loan to fix her car. Charlie's response, he told her not to worry. He just sent his mechanic, Sully, his credit card number. Fast forward to May 2015, when Katherine needed the belt replaced on her Mazda. Once again, Charlie told her to take it straight to the dealership. He'd cover it. And by November 2015, history repeated itself. Katherine's car needed more repairs, this time costing $1,620. And again, Charlie picked up the bill, putting the charge on his American Express. And at the end of 2015, Katherine got a new car.
At the end of 2015, after all these repairs and Charlie Adelson offering to help her financially with these repairs, at the end of 2015, does it appear that Katherine Magbanua got a different car?
She did.
And what's the first indication of that?
There was the title. We looked up for the GHSV records and saw where it was purchased.
Okay. Were there also messages where they discuss basically her having the Lexus now? Charlie Adelson needs to cancel his insurance on the Lexus.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, can you go through what we see here?
This is where he's discussing on December 14, 2015, that he's canceling the Lexus insurance. And she said she would get to it. She has a kid, she would do it later. And then he says, I just paid for it.
Okay. And in these messages, when he says he's going to cancel the Lexus insurance today on December 14th of 2015, does he say, just spoke to my mom. She's paying the insurance now. Just please go this Saturday, smiley face.
Yes.
And that's when she's saying, I'll do it. I've got my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
then
ma'am.
does Charlie Adelson then say, just paid it. They'll prorate it back to us. Just go Saturday. Don't rush today. And she's saying, I'll take care of it. Don't worry.
Yes.
Does he say, already paid it 5 minutes ago. Just chill. You are still the best.
That's correct.
You mentioned the DHS&V records in this case. What do we see here?
This is showing that the title transfer between Harvey and Katherine.
And what date did this take place?
This says
Let me see if I can zoom in a little.
January 23rd, 2016. It's on the right-hand side.
Right here.
Yes, January 23rd, 2016.
Okay. And what type of vehicle was that?
That was a Lexus,
2001 Lexus?
black 4-door. That's correct.
And the previous owner is listed as Harvey Jerome Adelson?
Yes.
How much did this DHSMV title indicate that it was sold to Magbanua for?
$1,700.
And that's there on the right side of the screen.
Yes.
Were you able to find any record of payment from Katherine Magbanua to any of the Adelsons for this vehicle?
No.
Did you search all her accounts?
Yes.
Was there any check, or maybe she just withdrew that amount of cash? Was there any cash withdrawal for that amount?
Nothing that correlated.
Were you able to find any deposit into, if she, let's say she already had that cash at home, any deposit into the Adelson's account for that amount?
No.
Was there, in a little while, we'll see that she was receiving money from Adelson Institute, correct?
That's correct.
Was there any drop in the money she was receiving from Adelson Institute in that time to account for maybe this was just taken out of her salary?
No.
Can you insure a vehicle without transferring title?
No.
Dugan then moved on to other kinds of financial help, the gifts and support Charlie was giving Katherine. On March 6, 2015, Charlie bought her a plane ticket to Santo Domingo, price tag $970. Then in October of that same year, text showed Katherine talking with Charlie about wanting to take her mom on a special trip for her 60th birthday over Thanksgiving. The two have even tossed around the idea of a cruise. And the money trail didn't stop there. Dugan highlighted messages from May of 2015 when Katherine told Charlie she had to quit her weekend job but still had plenty of expenses, including tuition for her kids. Charlie's response, he told her ever so graciously that he'd lend her whatever she needed. Not long after, $1,400 showed up in Katherine's account. But Charlie's support for Katherine wasn't just about handing her money. He also showered her with extras, things like teeth whitening, paying for her meal plans, and even letting her borrow luxury cars. Then Dugan brought up something bigger, Katherine's breast augmentation surgery. It happened on October 18th, 2014, with a price tag of $4,608. Almost all of it, $4,400 of that, was paid in cash. That's 96% of the breast augmentation price. And here's the kicker. Katherine's bank records don't show any withdrawals anywhere near that amount. Dugan also pointed out deposits into Katherine's account that traced back to the Adelson Institute. Those payments spanned from October 7th, 2014, all the way through May 17th, 2016. Take a listen to how that all played out in court.
What do we have here?
So this shows the horizontal bars show her employment time frame, and then the murder and the bump are also showed on as a time frame.
When was her last check from Sophie Dental Care, the dental company she was working at before the murder?
The first part of July 2014.
Okay, and then she didn't have any more checks or didn't receive any more checks from them after that point?
That's correct.
Is there any record of her being employed anywhere at the time of the murder?
No.
And you said she began receiving checks from Adelson Institute about a little less than 3 months after the murder?
That's correct.
And she received checks from them until the last check was dated in May of 2016?
That's correct.
After that, Dugan shifted over to the Adelson Institute and how the operations ran. And here we go. We have another clip right here. Let's see. Grab that for you. Just a second.
No.
And is Adelson Institute the Adelson family's dental practice?
It is.
Was it a financially successful dental practice?
Yes.
In 2012, did Charlie Adelson become the listed manager of Adelson Institute?
Yes.
And then in 2015, did the articles of organization change from both Charlie and Harvey being listed managers?
Yes.
And what date was that in 2015?
October 2nd, 2015.
Okay. Now, even though Charlie was the manager beginning in 2012 to October of 2015, was Harvey Adelson still employed as a dentist at Adelson Institute
He was.
and received checks from there?
Yes.
In 2016, in July of 2016, did it change to only Harvey being the listed manager and Charlie being a registered agent?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, throughout all those years, 2012 to 2016, did Donna Adelson have signing authority for the Adelson Institute?
She did.
And what does that mean?
She had the ability to move money without having someone else approve it.
Was there evidence from Charlie Adelson's iCloud in reference to how or why Magbanua began receiving income from Adelson Institute?
Yes, she was saying that she needed to show employment to get not only health insurance for a kid, but an apartment that she wanted to rent.
Okay, so looking at this text, is this a text from June 24th of 2014?
It is.
So this is about maybe 3 to 4 weeks before the murder of Dan Markell.
That's correct.
And in this text, does she say, "Baby, I'm going to need help on the employment info. I have to send to DCF for my kids' INS." Could that be short for insurance?
Insurance.
Also, if I have to end up moving later on, I need to show I'm working for you or else I won't be able to get an apartment. Does she say that at 12:33 p.m.?
She did.
And what does he say back at 12:36?
No problem.
No prob, short for no problem?
prob.
Okay. And is this a time when his mother is signing authority there?
That's correct.
During the time that Katherine was supposedly working at the Adelson Institute, she was issued 44 checks. And every single one of those checks was signed by Donna Adelson herself. Donna handled payroll for the entire office, so her signature was on everyone's checks. But Hull pointed out something important. Aside from Donna, the only people who had authority to sign those checks were Charlie or Harvey. Each of Katherine's checks, they were written for the exact same amount, $407.58. The only exception was her very first one, which came out to $203.79, exactly half of what that 2-week pay period would be. But Hull didn't stop there. She told the jury that Donna's role went well beyond payroll. She wasn't just cutting checks. She was in many ways running Charlie's life. She booked his travel, reminded him to pay his bills, made bank transfers, and acted almost like his personal assistant, keeping up with his day-to-day needs. Some of the checks given to Katherine were advanced paid checks, meaning she received them before the pay period was over. And this part is interesting. So let's take a listen to another clip here.
And were any of these checks sequential?
There were.
And what does that mean?
That means they were all the next in line check numbers, 25, 26, 27.
So going back to our picture of the checks, excuse me.
So
Are
yeah,
these 3 checks sequential here?
they are.
Okay, so 24, 25, 26.
Yes.
Let me go back to where we were. Since they were sequential, were they dated all at the same time, showing that they were written at all the same time?
No, they just have the sequential check numbers.
How many sequential checks did she receive in a row?
There was a total of 18 sequential checks. There's one set of 3, another set of 6, and another long set there. 1, 2.
Okay, so are these 3 checks
10.
sequential here that I'm pointing to?
Yes,
Okay, and then are these 6 checks sequential?
that's correct.
And then these first 6 check marks, were these sequential?
They were.
And then the final 3 here, checks that she received, are they sequential?
They are.
So this isn't 9 sequential checks. It's a set of 6 sequential checks and then another set of 3 sequential.
That's correct.
Okay. We talked about the ones that were sequential. Are there also a lot of the checks that are not sequential?
Yes.
And if they are not sequential, does that mean that those checks appear to have been written in the normal course of payroll?
That would appear so.
So when you're looking at the records, she may be check 1,000, and then another employee, a hygienist, might be check 1,001. Harvey Adelson might be check 1,002, and a front desk employee might be check 1,003.
That's correct.
Hull also testified about what happened when investigators subpoenaed employment records for Katherine. They asked for any and all records tied to her job at the Adelson Institute. But what came back? Just a QuickBooks summary. No employee application, no timesheets, no W-2s, no job description, no performance reviews, nothing that would normally document someone as a real employee. Just a bare bones summary. Hull told the jury that in her experience, when she requests employment records in cases like this, she usually gets a full stack of documents. The fact that the only thing produced was a simple QuickBooks printout stood out as highly unusual. But here's the thing. There was a big discrepancy between the QuickBooks records and Katherine's actual bank statements. According to QuickBooks, the last paycheck Katherine received from the Adelson Institute was on March 31st, 2016, but her bank records told a different story. Of course they did. They showed 3 more checks after that, with the final one posted on May 17th, 2016. And Dugan really drilled into that point because just days later, on May 25th, Sigfredo was arrested. After that, not a single check ever went to Katherine again. All told, between September 2014 and May 2016, Katherine had received just under $18,000, $17,729.73 to be exact, from the Adelson Institute. And then Dugan shifted over to the bump. Let's talk about the bump.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit more about this timing. Are you familiar with what law enforcement called the bump on April 19th of 2016?
I am.
All right. Looking at these last 3 checks that were deposited into her account, was there evidence of a check later than those in sequence that was actually posted to the bank account before the bump on April 19th of 2016?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the check here to Harvey Adelson on April 4th?
That's correct.
And that would have been before the bump,
It would.
but after in sequence of Magbanua's checks?
Yes.
So is it possible, given the sequence, that Donna Adelson stopped writing Magbanua checks after she was approached by the agent during the bump?
It appears that way.
Looking at the history of Katherine's bank account, in 2013, the year before Dan was murdered, Katherine deposited $13,035 of cash into her account. In 2014, that went up more than 3 times for a total of $46,820. Cash deposits were her highest source of income that year, and the Adelson Institute accounted for just 4% of her total income, which was a total of $2,649.27. In 2015, the total amount of cash deposits was $26,523.77, which was 51% of her total income that year. The Adelson Institute accounted for 20% of her total income that year at $10,189.50. And then there's Charlie's former roommate, Dr. Jerome Obed's dermatology practice, who accounted for 10% of her total income in 2015 with a total amount of $5,437.66. Fast forward to 2016, and all of that dramatically shifted. Katherine's cash deposits went down to $11,921.33. The Adelson Institute paid her a total amount of $4,890.96 in 2016 prior to the check stopping in May. And then she made a total of $4,095.76 from Dr. Jerome Obed. Dugan shifted back to the cash coming in the year that Dan was murdered. Let's take a listen.
You said that 2014 was the year that Magbanua had the most amount of cash deposited into her account. What does this graph depict?
So this is a line graph showing the level of cash for each month, and then they're connected. The dots are connected by a line for you to have the visual look, the visual representation.
And was the month in 2014 that she had the most cash deposited into her account August,
It was,
the month after Dan Markell was murdered?
yes,
And the second and third highest month, October and July?
that's right.
That would be the same month that she started receiving income from Adelson Institute, and the same month as her breast augmentation in October for number 2.
Yes,
And number 3 being the month of the murder of Dan Markell.
yes,
When you compared 2014 to the amount of cash she received in all 3 years, were those 3 months still the highest amounts of cash she received in all 3 years?
yes,
August, October, and July of 2014.
that's correct.
Okay, so this is all of the cash she received depicted by the bar graph for all 3 years.
It is.
Well, after talking about all of Katherine's financials, Dugan wanted to bring it all home and that Adelsons had enough money to plot all of this entire murder plot. Take a listen. Let's bring it home.
Did each of these members of the Adelson family, and when I say members, I mean Donna Adelson, Harvey Adelson, Charlie Adelson, and Wendi Adelson, have the means in their respective accounts in 2013 to pay the $1 million bribe that was discussed in the messages?
Yes,
Did each of the members of the Adelson family have the means in their respective accounts in 2014 to pay the $130-something thousand, let's say $140,000 given to Garcia, Magbanua, and Rivera?
yes,
Did Charlie Adelson have the means in his account to pay for all of the different benefits and gifts that he gave to or offered Katherine Magbanua over the years from 2014 to 2016?
yes,
And when I say means in their account, is that money that's available for withdrawal? I'm not talking about homes or properties or cars or other assets.
yes, that's correct.
Okay. And would that amount, would those means obviously not include cash that is not deposited in any bank, right?
That's right.
We wouldn't know that amount.
Right.
Based on your review of Adelson Institute's records and messages in this case, did the Adelsons prefer to be paid in cash for their services at Adelson Institute, or did they prefer a credit card or check?
It appeared that they preferred cash.
Okay, were there lots of messages where they discuss giving discounts for cash, certain clients being willing to pay cash, and that being preferred?
Yes,
Are these just some of the examples?
just some of them, yes.
Were there messages in the Adelson family's records where they discuss having cash and how they store their cash?
Yes,
I want to turn your attention to this text message we see here on the screen. Can you read these messages to us? And these are from 2011, but what I'm looking for here is dimensions of cash and how the cash is kept. If you could read those for us.
okay. So the first block is from Donna. It says, "Good morning, Charlie. I need to take $25,000 from your office checkbook and put it in Dad's office checkbook in order to break even this month. Can we do that? Do you have enough money in your office account for us to write that check? If you do, then Dad will move $25,000 in cash in the safe into your pile. Please let me know as soon as possible so Dad can take care of it today. You can call. I am home, or text me, whatever is best for you. I love you, honey, Mom.
And he says no problem.
He says no problem.
Okay. So here, do they discuss having large amounts of cash and keeping it in piles in a safe?
Yes.
Were there other messages besides this one in the records where they discuss things, cash being in the safe or piles in the safe?
Yes.
Is this just one example?
Yes.
And as we talked about earlier, is it common for Donna Adelson to move money around between the Adelson family accounts?
Yes.
And does this safe appear to be at a place where Donna Adelson would have access to it or control of it?
The role you may answer based on your review of the records if you are capable, Ms. Hall.
Could you restate the question?
From the messages here, does the safe appear to be in a place where Donna Adelson would have access to it or control of it?
Yes.
After Dugan was done with her questioning, the defense came up for a short cross-exam. Jackie Fulford asked Hull what credit card account statements she reviewed, and Donna and reviewed for Donna and Harvey. And Hull said that she reviewed Amex and Capital One. She then asked about the car that Katherine got from Harvey for $1,700, and she asked Hull if it could have been a cash transaction, and she said that yes, it could have been. Fulford asked Hull if she knew that the cash discount price at the Adelson Institute was the same as the credit card fee amount, which was 5%. Hull said she did not know that. There was nothing specific about that in any of the correspondence she reviewed. And finally, Fulford simply clarified the timeline of Harvey's involvement in the Adelson Institute. Harvey became a manager in July 2016, and he became the owner again in 2020. And that was it. Not much for a cross-exam, given how much information was given during direct. But that's court for you. And on redirect, Dugan didn't have much either. But the main thing she wanted to clarify, again, was the timeline of the roles in the practice. Let's hear that timeline. I thought it was done really well.
Cash discounts mentioned in the text messages, are those messages also sent from Adelson Institute employees? You mentioned that Harvey Adelson was taken off as manager in 2012. He continued working there as a dentist. But then on October 2nd of 2015, he became manager again. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then in 2015, were Harvey and Charlie both managers?
That's correct.
Okay. In October of 2015.
Yes.
But then in 2016, July of 2016, only Harvey's a manager then at that point. Charlie has now dropped off to a registered agent.
That's right.
And these are on their articles of incorporation.
Yes.
Okay. They could still be both working there as dentists and have their own understanding of their role in the practice. But we're talking about what's listed on the articles of incorporation.
Right.
Okay. So it went from Harvey and Charlie both being managers in October of 2015. Magbanua still getting checks through the spring of 2016.
That's right.
And then after the arrests in 2016, Harvey Adelson becomes manager in July. Charlie is now a registered agent.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Well, up next on the stand was someone I'd been waiting for, Katherine Magbanua. She began her testimony by stating that she is currently serving a life sentence for the murder of Dan Markell. Katherine explained that in her trial, she had testified in her own defense and lied about her involvement in the conspiracy. She later admitted to lying and said she believed the truth needed to come out and that all responsible parties, including herself, needed to be held accountable. Keppelman asked if Katherine was hoping to gain anything from testifying truthfully now. She said she hoped to one day be able to see her children again, but emphasized that no one had promised her anything in exchange for her testimony. She also made clear that no one had told her what to say or required her to implicate any specific person. Katherine testified that she had originally been offered immunity to testify in the case, but had declined. She explained that during her first trial, she was tied alongside Sigfredo Garcia, who was facing the death penalty, and she could not be part of him receiving that sentence. The second time, she said she had been living a lie for so long that coming forward with the truth felt too difficult. Kappelman then asked her directly if she had been involved in Dan Markel's death and whether she had acted as the middleman between the shooter and Charlie Adelson. Katherine admitted yes, confirming that Charlie solicited her to get involved while they were dating at the time. Katherine explained that she first became involved with Sigfredo Garcia when she was about 18 years old, and they had a long history of being on and off and having children together. And during one of their breaks, she began seeing Charlie, and later she started seeing Sigfredo again, with some overlap coinciding with the period around Dan's murder. Katherine said that Charlie first pitched the idea of finding someone to kill Dan around October 2013. They were at a Halloween block party when Charlie asked her if she knew anyone who could harm someone. And at the time, Sigfredo was the first person who came to her mind. Katherine testified that when Sigfredo first learned she was dating Charlie, there was a phone call altercation in July 2014. Sigfredo saw Charlie and Katherine together and tried to prevent them from leaving Katherine's house, yelling at them. But Charlie managed to drive away. Later that day, Sigfredo tried calling Charlie, accidentally dialing Harvey's number instead. And other than through Katherine, there was no connection between Sigfredo and the Adelson family. Next, Katherine testified that she knew Luis Rivera through Sigfredo Garcia, and they were close friends. Kappelman asked why she agreed with Charlie to find someone who could hurt Dan, and Katherine said that at the time, Charlie knew she was experiencing financial difficulties and could use the money. She added that Garcia and Rivera were also motivated by money. Katherine stated that Charlie never told her why he wanted someone to harm Dan. She explained that throughout their relationship, Charlie would talk about how his sister and parents were struggling to deal with Wendy's ex-husband. He painted Dan in a negative light, knowing that Katherine was dealing with her own issues with Sigfredo, which made her sympathize with his sister. Charlie eventually conveyed that Dan was becoming a bigger problem, causing his family significant stress and illness. Katherine also testified that she first met Donna Adelson at the dental office when she went in for cavities and teeth whitening. To her recollection, that was the only time she ever met Donna Adelson. Katherine explained that after Charlie initially asked her for help at the Halloween party, he would continue bringing it up occasionally whenever they saw each other. They would meet about twice a week, and when she stayed the night, Charlie would talk more about wanting to fix the problem. That was in quotes, fix the problem. Fix the problem with Dan. Eventually, Katherine agreed to help and said she had someone who could do it. Kappelman asked whether Charlie ever discussed the plan with both Katherine and Donna during these conversations. Katherine said that sometimes he would step out of the room to take a phone call and give her a strange look, but she did not know what was said on those calls. When he returned, he would resume talking about taking care of Dan. She explained that the conversations typically involved Charlie speaking with her, then stepping aside to talk privately with Donna. However, Charlie never specifically said what, if anything, Donna contributed. Katherine said she understood that completing the job would relieve the Adelson family's stress. Katherine described when she realized the plan was not just about harming Dan, but about murder. Charlie handed her an envelope and instructed her not to open it. He told her he had worn gloves to seal the envelope and asked her to pass it on to the people who would carry out the job. Katherine never told Charlie that the people she was recruiting were her ex, Sigfredo Garcia, and Luis Rivera. She explained that she was trying to insulate each co-conspirator from the others. Sigfredo did not know the job was for Charlie Adelson, and Charlie did not know Sigfredo would be carrying it out. Katherine placed the envelope in her diaper bag and gave it to Sigfredo without opening it herself. When Sigfredo came to collect it, he grabbed the envelope and left, so she never saw its contents. In June 2014, Charlie gave Katherine money to pass on to Sigfredo to cover expenses like renting a car, gas, and other costs related to the job. Katherine didn't know the exact location of the planned hit, but understood it was for scoping out the area. And since nothing happened the first time the men went to Tallahassee, Charlie grew frustrated that the plan wasn't progressing quickly. Katherine initially worried that Sigfredo had just taken the money and wouldn't follow through, and as Charlie continued to pressure her, she in turn pressured Sigfredo to complete the task. Katherine testified that she wasn't aware that Dan had planned to go out of town the day after the hit occurred. However, she assumed that Charlie provided his travel schedule to Sigfredo in the envelope so they would know the appropriate time to carry out the plan. Next, Kappelman showed Katherine a text that she had sent to Charlie requesting to be put on the payroll at the dental office so she could demonstrate employment. She wanted to at least some of the money she received to show on payroll to qualify her for insurance for her son. Katherine admitted that she was not actually performing work at the office and that the payments she was receiving were compensation for arranging Dan Markel's murder. Next, Kappelman asked Katherine if she ever met Wendi. She said she met Wendi on a double date with Charlie, Wendi and Jeff, and another time at the beach. Katherine testified that she never discussed her schedule or anything related to the murder with Wendi. The only people that she ever talked to about it were Charlie and Sigfredo. After the hit was carried out, Katherine testified that she received a call from Sigfredo confirming the job and asking for their payment. She went to Charlie's house to retrieve the money and described him as very frantic, pacing back and forth with a gun in his hand, which she found unusual. Charlie told her his parents had just left, and he offered her a Xanax, which made her fall asleep. When she woke up, Charlie told her that the money was already in her trunk. She then drove to Sigfredo's house so he could collect his portion. And later that night, Sigfredo returned her share of the money, placing it in her closet, tied up in a plastic bag. A few days later, she noticed the money was stapled, wet, and beginning to mold. Charlie told her that his mother had washed it. Katherine explained that from that time up until the bump, Charlie would help her with various things. She purchased a vehicle from his family that had problems, and he helped get them fixed. A few months later, she began receiving paychecks, which continued up until 2016. The paychecks sometimes came multiple at a time and stopped when Sigfredo was arrested because Charlie and Donna became spooked. Katherine also testified that out of the 44 checks she received, Donna signed all of them. After the bump, Charlie asked Katherine to meet him at a restaurant. Katherine testified that while an undercover officer recorded their conversation inside, they first talked in Charlie's car for a few minutes. She said he turned up the music and leaned in to tell her that his mom had been approached. Katherine said she could tell throughout the meeting that Charlie felt she might have been trying to set him up. He was running through various scenarios about who the bumper could be because they mentioned Luis's nickname, Tato, and they were trying to get money from Luis. Katherine thought it might actually be an associate of Luis since she had never told Charlie or anyone else that Luis was involved when Sigfredo on the hit. Well, Kappelman asked whether Charlie ever told Katherine that the murder was to benefit his mother. He never said it was to benefit Wendi either, but Katherine understood that was the reason. Charlie did tell her that Donna had been at his house right before Katherine came to get the money after the murder, and he also confirmed that Donna had washed the money. On cross-examination, Jackie Fulford revisited Katherine's earlier admission that she had lied during her first two trials in this case. Katherine testified that on the night of the murder, before arriving at Charlie's house, his parents had just left and he seemed very upset. Both she and Charlie took a Xanax and went to bed. Fulford then reviewed the timeline of Katherine's relationship with Charlie, probing for inconsistencies and attempting to challenge her version of events. Take a listen to this.
At this point, you still don't know Luis Rivera's involved?
At that point, no, ma'am.
You still didn't know?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So you said that Mr. Garcia puts the money into your closet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And a few days later, you actually go into the closet?
I don't know if it was the same day that, that he put the money there, but a couple days later when I had opened the bag, that's when I felt the moisture of the money.
So you didn't touch the money the first day?
I don't recall if I did or if I didn't.
So I'm talking about the first day that Charlie gives it to you. You didn't touch it.
Oh, no, I did not.
Okay. And you didn't touch it this next day. That's when you gave it to Sigfredo.
Yes, because he just grabbed it from the trunk of my car.
Okay. And a couple days later, he brings you your share and puts it in your closet.
A day or two. It might have been the same day or the day after. He put it in the closet.
And then at some point, you open the bag.
Yes, ma'am.
And inside the bag, you find, it's not very thick, but you find stacks of money that's stapled together, correct?
What's not very thick?
10 $1 bill or 10 $100 bills stapled together. That's not very thick, is it?
It was just in stacks of, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So how much did you get for arranging Danny Markel to be killed from Charlie's request to passing that on to Sigfredo Garcia? How much money did you get?
I never counted how much money was even in the bag. I just,
As you sit here today, you're telling this jury you never know what your cut was. You
no,
can't
ma'am.
tell them.
No, ma'am, I never counted it.
You spent some of it, didn't you?
I believe so.
And
Yes,
you,
ma'am, yes.
and you deposited some of it in your bank account,
Yes, ma'am.
but you don't know how much yours was.
No, ma'am.
But you do admit that Charlie gave you a check after that from Adelson Institute, right?
The-
He gave you payroll checks from
Yes,
Adelson
ma'am.
Institute, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Charlie gave those to you.
No, it was, Charlie handed me the checks. Yes, ma'am.
Exactly.
Yes,
Okay. And you testified that you met Ms. Donna Adelson on one occasion, right?
From what I recall, yes, from the dental office when I went to get work done.
She greeted you when you came for your appointment, basically.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you had your appointment and you paid for the services, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And there's been testimony that Charlie, after that date, he gave you other benefits, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, you and he weren't together anymore, correct?
After,
After the homicide.
no, we were not together, but we were still friendly with each other. We were still,
You're friends, but you went back to Sigfredo, right?
there was a time where I was between Sigfredo and still intimate with Charlie as well.
Besides the one time you had that dental appointment and you saw Mrs. Adelson, you met her, Donna Adelson.
Yes, ma'am.
After that, you never talked to her again, did you?
Not that I can recall. I don't think I've
You didn't speak
spoken.
on the phone to each other?
No, ma'am.
You didn't text each other?
No, ma'am.
You didn't email each other?
No, ma'am.
You didn't have any other communication of any kind?
No, ma'am.
You didn't meet with her in person?
There's only a time that I saw her, but I didn't meet with her.
Right, exactly. And when you're having these discussions with Charlie Adelson, I'm talking about you and your knowledge. When you're having these discussions with Charlie and then having discussions with Sigfredo, she's not involved in those conversations with you, is she?
No, ma'am, she's not.
Sorry, guys. I've been trying to figure out how to slow it down, the sound on that. We don't know why it was fast. I had it on normal speed, and then you guys saw that I now have a friend here with me. So behave, Lily. This is the head of HR at Hidden True Crime, Lily Bell. Okay. So, on redirect, Georgia Kappelman reiterated the point that Donna and Katherine never had direct contact. She clarified that Katherine had contact with Charlie, who in turn had contact with Donna. And the defense objected, noting that Katherine said she wasn't involved and didn't hear the conversations between Charlie and Donna, but the objection was overruled. Katherine confirmed that the chain of contact was always Katherine to Charlie to Donna and back. She explained that she was the middleman for Charlie and Sigfredo, while Charlie was the middleman between Katherine and Donna. The last witness to take the stand was Tallahassee Police Sergeant Christopher Corbett, the department's tech operations expert. This little girl wants to be in the, and by that I mean this is the dog for those listening to our podcast. By little girl I mean the dog wants to be in the show. So hi Lily. Okay, can you just, I will pet you if you relax. And I hope that my sound is I hope that my sound's normal. Okay. Now you guys are probably like, speak faster. All right, after that sound bite. You guys are used to like 2 times speed. All right. Are you good? Are you good? Okay. We've got one last witness. So you got to relax. This was a big day of trial, Lily, a really big day, and people want to hear what happened. So can you cooperate? Okay. All right. I think she listened. So, all right. Corbett is the department's tech operations expert, and Corbett had spent years analyzing phone records, GPS data, emails, rental records, tickets, and iCloud accounts. And in this case, he pieced it all together into a detailed timeline. Prosecutors call the digital blueprint. They called it the digital blueprint of Dan's murder. And he was tasked with reviewing the call detail records for Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia and Katherine Magbanua, Wendi, Charlie, Donna, and Harvey Adelson, and Dan Markel. So Corbett walked the jury through Dan's final morning. His phone and GPS data show him at his home on Trescott Drive, dropping his child off at preschool, heading to Premier Gym, and then returning home where he was shot. Prosecutors say the killers tracked those same movements in Corbett's timeline, makes it clear how closely their actions followed Dan's day. And then he walked the jury through the phone records. He said, quote, cell records show Garcia and Rivera's phones traveling in sync. Their devices ping off towers in Miami, then slowly move north. By July 18th, they're in Tallahassee. The same morning, Dan Markel's phone logs show his gym stop and return home, end quote. The state moved to admit exhibits 91 through 98, phone records for Sigfredo, Luis, Wendi, Donna, Charlie, Harvey, Katherine, and Dan. All were certified by the carriers and admitted into evidence. Investigators suspected Dan was being followed, and surveillance footage showed a Prius near Premier Gym. And to confirm, TPD pulled tower dumps from AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Verizon, tracking which phones pinged towers near Dan that morning. And the data returned thousands of records. No single number hit every location, but one stood out. A 37-second voicemail from Sigfredo Garcia's phone to Harvey Adelson on July 1st, 2014. And as we know from Catherine's testimony, that was when Sigfredo actually attempted to call Charlie. Frequency reports show the chain of contacts. Garcia's top contact was Katherine Magbanua, and Catherine's top contact was Charlie Adelson, and Charlie's most frequent contact was Donna Adelson. Prosecutors say the records lay out the chain connecting the shooter to Katherine, to Charlie, and ultimately to Donna. Sergeant Corbett pulled up a network chart for the jury laying out the alleged hierarchy of the conspiracy, and the bottom link was Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera. The middle link was Katherine Magbanua. The top link was Charlie Adelson, with Donna having oversight over it all. The chart mapped the call records directly into the conspiracy, showing how each person fit into the operation. Tower dump data places Luis's phone in Tallahassee at the same time Dan was moving around. And Corbett explained that his handset patterns aligned with Sigfredo's, placing both hitmen in the city hours before the murder. And then he walked the jury through GPS data from the rental Prius used by Luis and Sigfredo. The car pinged towers across Tallahassee along Dan's morning route, lining perfectly with his phone records. Surveillance video from Premier Health and Fitness showed a silver Prius circling the lot while Dan worked out. The timeline matched the cell records, suggesting the hitmen were tracking Dan. Dan's morning, this is so heartbreaking to just go through once again, but Dan's morning was mapped out step by step, dropping his children off at preschool, stopping at the gym, and then heading back home. The state says Luis and Sigfredo followed him at every stop in the silver Prius. GPS logs even place the rental car near Creative Preschool, his son's preschool, just minutes after the kids were dropped off. The pursuit had already begun. And back at Premier Gym, GPS and tower records showed the silver Prius parked outside while Markel worked out. Surveillance footage captured the car circling the lot, waiting for him to leave. Corbett traced the vehicle's movements with GPS pings as it followed Dan back toward his home on Trescott Drive. Minutes later, he was ambushed in his own garage. The state also highlighted a July 1st voicemail from Sigfredo. After confronting Katherine and Charlie, he left a furious message on Harvey Adelson's phone. The next morning, text between Charlie and Katherine mocked Sigfredo, calling him, and I'm going to quote these. So Charlie and Katherine mocked Sigfredo, calling him, quote, retarded, childish, and an effing pussy. The prosecution then turned to Donna Adelson's emails. In March of 2013, she emailed Wendi, calling Dan Markel, and I quote, a motherfucker, and insisting the relocation issue in the divorce was non-negotiable. She framed the fight as a matter of family survival. And by May 2013, Donna's tone escalated. In emails to Wendi, she wrote, quote, how smart are you? And I'm quoting this is a quote. How smart are you to get rid of this piece of shit? End quote. And she emphasized that relocation was, quote, the most important part of the divorce, end quote, and began outlining strategies. The prosecution introduced what they call the performance plan in emails to Wendi, Donna, and wrote, quote, the rest of our family's lives depend on your performance in the next few weeks. He hasn't beaten the Adelson family yet, end quote. The emails outlined psychological tactics, staged baptisms, and other ways to manipulate and irritate Dan. Donna's messages continued to escalate. She suggested putting Wendi's children in the Hitler Youth costumes as part of an act to scare Dan. She reiterated, quote, we are planning, me, Dad, Charlie, we are a team. We cannot do this without you, end quote. One email proposed the $1 million offer to Dan, signed, written, quote, written with hope and love, mom and dad, end quote. Prosecutors say these messages tie the family into a coordinated strategy against Dan that they were all involved in. The email chain showed Dan's custody request forwarded to Wendi, to Donna, then to Charlie. Donna called it absolutely crazy and impossible, venting directly to her son weeks before Halloween of October 2013. In October show continued. So text from October continue to pressure. Donna told Charlie the custody fight was horrible and that Harvey's blood pressure had spiked. Charlie responded, I bet. Let's talk this week, end quote. The family stress was constant. Over Halloween, October 30th to 31st, 2013, Donna alerted Charlie that Wendi was moving ahead with a house purchase. Charlie pressed, asking if Dan had given permission within 24 hours. Wendi canceled the deal after a 20-minute call with Charlie, and Donna texted, quote, wow, thank you again. You're a miracle worker, end quote, which insinuates that Charlie had actually talked Wendi out of the purchase. Custody tensions continued into 2014, and in February, Donna vented to Charlie about depositions, stalking, and wasted court time. She wrote, quote, total waste of the court's time. Judge should know she's being stalked, end quote. In March, secrecy became even more apparent. On March 4th, 2014, while driving from Tallahassee to Gainesville, Donna texted Charlie, quote, I can speak to you privately. Erase this text after you read it. Wow, end quote. And 20 minutes later, she claimed it was about Dad's birthday gift, giving the jury a glimpse of Donna and Charlie hiding communications. On May 30th, 2014, Donna emailed Charlie saying she had had a tough conversation with Wendi. And by June, the hitman, Sigfredo, and Luis were already making a trip to Tallahassee. The prosecution highlighted how family stress and communications were directly tied to the planning phases. Texts instructing someone to erase this drew attention in court. Jurors were told that even if the message seemed harmless, like referring to a birthday gift, it could indicate the consciousness of guilt and show that they were used to deleting communications, hiding communications. And with that, Judge Everett ended court for the day. Sergeant Corbett will resume his testimony on cell records and digital forensics starting tomorrow. So, and so that is the day. It was a big day, to say the least, a huge day. So thank you. And forgive Lily too, by the way. Lily didn't have a walk earlier today. So she's, and Lily is more of, she's not a morning dog. She likes to sleep in the morning. And in the evening, she's like, okay, where's my walk? Let's do this. So thank you for your patience while Lily got a little hyper there. She usually just sleeps all day on my lap, like a good HR, head of HR. So, all right. So big day in court. Tomorrow it continues. Justice for Dan Markel. Let's see. By the way, I'm just going to read a few of your chats here. Thank you everyone again for your compliments on my haircut. I appreciate it. Thank you everyone for liking this. If you appreciate these recaps, it genuinely helps to like. By liking, I mean pushing the thumbs up, because it gets it into the algorithms and then allows us to be able to continue to do more of these trial recaps. So if this is something you like that Hidden True Crime does, please like the video. It helps. And thank you for subscribing as well, because these do take a lot of effort and time. And yeah, for those that were wondering about my sweater, go grab it at Walmart right now. And Walmart is not sponsoring this video. Hashtag not sponsored, but there you go. That's where I got it. I think I was heading there for conditioner. And then of course I have to walk through because I like their pajamas, and then I saw it. Then I snagged it. So, yes, Lily, Lily is, she was not good about playing small in that last bit. Her eyes are up there saying, I'm here and I'm staying. Exactly. And pet me now. So yes, she comforts me a lot, so I can pet her. It's a relationship that goes both ways. Teresa, thank you. I appreciate that. You just found our channel and you love the way we describe it, everything. Something else. I'm seeing Melanie is asking if there's an update on the Emmanuel case with the parents in court. Absolutely there is. It's going to be a late night here at Hidden True Crime. So I'm probably going to have to go take Lily on that walk because we are working right now on an Emmanuel update. A lot of interesting things happening, including our friend on the Tira getting in trouble in court today. We'll be bringing you the latest and what I'll share what I think is actually perhaps happening behind the scenes as well. So stay tuned. Yes. So what else is everybody saying? Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. Oh, is that true? Is it National Dog Day? Whether it is or not, let's just say it is. It's National Dog Day, and she's saying she wants a treat. Yeah. We will be covering the Emmanuel case tonight. We are working on a script right now, so we hope to have it up later tonight. If not tonight, tomorrow morning. So all I can say is here's my other pitch. Hit subscribe and notifications so you know, because when we have it put together, we will put it up, whether that's tonight or early tomorrow morning. Brenda is saying you live in Ukaipa, and I hope they can put that baby to rest. Yeah, let's hope for justice for Emmanuel. Thank you, Brenda, for joining us tonight. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. I'm sure you guys all have to run and you're tired, and I'm just like continuing to hang out because when I have to go through an entire trial recap, one thing I miss is just hanging out with all of you. And so I'm stalling. But I'm going to go take Lily on a walk and then continue to follow the Emmanuel case. So thank you, everyone, for joining with us. Stick with us as we continue to follow many heartbreaking cases and hope for justice. And we, of course, continue to hope for justice for Dan Markel. We'll see you. Bye-bye. And yes, John will be talking about the Emmanuel case tomorrow. That's our plan right now. We'll see you.